In this video, I'm going to be covering 2 exercises that I do for the mobility of the hip joint. If you're doing any lifting from ground to overhead, as you know, you get a lot of that power from that hip drive. If this is tight or if you get a lot of restriction through that area, you're going to start recruiting areas, especially in the lower back, and provide a lot of stress there. So you want to limit that as much as possible. There's 2 exercises that I'll do to make sure I can just get that hip moving how I want it to. The first one I do is I usually just sit in a squatted position. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to try and get the knee joint to touch the floor underneath the other knee joint. And I'm just going to come through like that. What this will do is it'll just move that hip through the acetabulum area in the pelvis to make sure you get the proper mobility. The hip joint attaches onto the front of the pelvis in this socket area through there. You have a muscle that runs around it known as the labrum, and it will just really work that area to make sure there's no fibrosis, there's no restriction through that area so you can get that proper hip drive. The second one that I'm going to do, it's a muscle that will get extremely tight if you do any sitting or long periods of driving. It's known as the piriformis muscle. Often you hear of Piriformis Syndrome. That's where the muscle can aggravate the sciatic nerve and referral down into the leg. The muscle's short, it's extremely strong. It attaches onto the side of what's known as the sacrum, comes through and attaches onto the femur. If it's tight, it'll restrict the movement of the femur on into the hip joint and cause a lot of problems in that pelvis and lower back area. The best way I find to really get the mobility out of that is using a lacrosse ball or a trigger point ball and just putting it on the muscle. In this example, I'm going to be stretching the right piriformis. I'm going to just get the ball, just sit it under in between the 2 attachment points. I'm going to be keeping my leg at a right angle and just relaxing that area there. I'm going to take the weight with my other leg. I don't want to put all the weight on that muscle. I want to control how much pressure through there. Now, the specific way to roll this, I find if you roll at the angle of this leg here, so I'm going to be rolling that way. And what you'll find if it's really tight, it can be almost like a rope. You'll just feel it roll over. That's an indication this muscle is really tight. And I'm just going to slowly roll through that area. When you find an area that's quite tender, take the weight off so it's not putting too much pressure on, and then just slowly let it go, and it can just help release that muscle. And then on the other side, placing it underneath that area. Take the weight with the other leg, keep this leg at a right angle, and just slowly work that through there. Now again, I'll see a lot of tightness in this area, anyone that's sitting down all day or doing a lot of driving. Reason being, this muscle will shorten and cause a lot of tension through there. So when you're lifting, it'll really restrict that movement. Do these 2 mobility exercises, you'll find a huge difference on the hip range of motion to make sure you get the most out of your lifts. Enjoy.